You are listening to Niger Health Radio, your wellness companion.
Listeners' discretion is highly advised as this podcast may contain strong language.
The Dressmaker. Oh, yeah. The Dressmaker.
It was a cold Friday afternoon in Lagos. Johan and Tolani had just finished setting up Johan's new apartment. Johan had relocated to Lagos 3 months ago after getting an invitation to work on site with the Lagos-based fintech firm he had been working with remotely for 2 years. The invitation was timely. He and Tolani had decided to get married and their parents were in full support. Tolani had always expressed her reservations about the idea of moving fully to Jos. Plateau State was awesome for service here, but it wasn't a place she wanted to settle in or raise a family. She was a Lagos babe any day, anytime.
Babe, no, don't get sneaky with me.
Tolani could. Johannes giggled and attempted to touch her waist again.
I'm not joking with you, Johannes Ibrahim.
Her voice takes a more serious tone.
Babe, we're not doing this till marriage. We've discussed this over and over again.
She switched from feisty to soft in one breath. Johannes winked and then said playfully,
I met you, babes. You were looking just too beautiful this afternoon. Oh my gosh. This man got tempted.
Tolani laughed a deep throat laugh.
Babe, Johannes, my darling. You can scope. As if this wasn't the same face you saw just like last week. Just confess that you've been watching too many romantic movies.
Tolani made a goofy face at him. Johannes laughed and stroked her hair.
I shall know that I'll be touching anywhere I like when we get married. Then, even in the supermarket, I'll steal moments.
Tolani chuckled with pure delight and gave him a mock salute.
Yes, my love.
She touched her forehead as a thought drifted to her.
Babe, hope you have not forgotten about our test on Friday. Babe, I beg you, cancel any other schedule. You know this is important. I want us to take the results along to our next counseling session with Pastor Itohan.
I have a training to conduct by 9 a.m., but I should be done by 12 p.m. so we can go for the test.
That's fine, my love. My mom will be so happy that we've come so far in counseling. She's so big on this church counseling thing.
Mom and Dad are also excited that we've progressed to this stage. What is it with parents and church counseling, by the way?
Babe, if you hear the color combination my mom and yours have planned for this wedding, you would be so shocked.
Honestly, colors like locust beans brown and toilet tissue white,
They both laughed.
Truth be told, T, I never thought your dad and mom will accept me so easily. I mean, it isn't very popular for a Hausa man to get a Yoruba wife.
Well, let's just say you got lucky.
Tolani responded good-naturedly.
Or let's just say I'm irresistible. Oh yeah, come. Let me continue stroking your hair now.
Johannes Ibrahim, leave trouble on its own, no.
Tolani gestured, drawing her hair in warning.
So, you are now calling me a troublemaker?
Johan said with a mock threat in his voice as he advanced towards Tolani. Tolani knew he was looking for another excuse to make for her waist. So she squealed and ran to the other couch, adjacent to the one she was sitting in previously. She laughed hard and raised a warning finger to Johannes.
Don't you dare touch me or I will scream.
Johannes joined her laughing and said,
Oh yeah, let the screaming match start now.
Johannes and Tolani were at the doctor's office together. Dr. Dyer had invited both of them to his office to discuss their test results. Dr. Dyer handed them their results and asked,
Would you have me discuss this with you together or individually?
Johannes and Tolani glanced at each other and Tolani nodded for Johannes to speak.
Together.
The doctor picked the first paper and said,
So, Tolani's genotype is AA and Johannes is AS.
Tolani squealed in delight when she heard this.
Aren't you a lucky man? You're getting married to a woman who is both AA and O positive. I'm a spec. I'm a burijo. See you should give me all your money.
Tolani raised the shoulder of her dress and did a dance on her seat, clearly bragging at Johan. Johan stuck out his tongue.
Proud human. I'm the real spec here, and I'm the one who won't be coming down with malaria. But I'll just be taking care of someone who has AA.
Johan touched the stubble of his chin and gave it a little pull to emphasize his point. Dr. Dio continued to flip through the files on his desk as he listened to the lovers' band. He looked up and said,
For your resource tests, you both are resource positive.
Tolani and Johan exchanged questioning glances.
Is that a good thing, Doctor?
She asked a little nervously. Dr. Dyer nodded and sat upright behind his desk. He looked from Tolani to Johan and started to speak.
Yes, it's a good thing. Since both of you are resource positive, your babies will be resource positive too. This means that you are not in danger of resource incompatibility.
Both Tolani and Johan nodded their understanding and waited as he moved to the next result.
Now to your HIV results.
Dr. Dio continued to speak expressionlessly.
Johannes, your HIV results is negative. And Tolani, you are HIV positive.
Tolani stood up in shock and exclaimed,
What? HIV positive?
Positive.
Johan repeated
Positive?
the word positive silently, like twice,
Positive.
with a bemused expression on his face. He looked at Tolani.
You are HIV positive?
Tolani spared Johan a brief glance and returned her questioning gaze back to the doctor, tears welling up in her eyes already.
Doctor, that isn't my test result. Is it?
She looked at the doctor to confirm if he was right or wrong, but Dr. Dyer continued to wear his expressionless look. Johan clenched his fist tightly. He could feel the anger course through his body in one hot sweep. No, he wasn't going to hit her. He had never hit a woman before, and he won't start with her, especially not in the presence of a third party. Johan's fury filled the air in the fairly spacious office of Dr. Dyer. He was with his fiancée, Tolani, and the day wasn't going as he had hoped. Tolani was seated with her hands spread on the mahogany table before Dr. Dyer. She sighed, attempted to speak, but hushed again. She let out her breath with a heavy sigh and muttered,
Doctor, HIV, how? But I've never had sex before.
She felt sweat trickle down her back. She used her white handkerchief to wipe her forehead and inhaled deeply in an attempt to control the anxiety she was feeling. Johannes made a face of sheer exasperation and exclaimed,
Liar, Tolani. You make me sick. You don't have the effrontery to lie in the face of this kind of diagnosis.
He gave a humorless laugh and continued,
It's the nerve for me, oh. To think you won't even let me hold your waist. Always for me. I want to wait till marriage. But here you are, a public property. Not one, not two, or three men have had their share, as you can see. Hey, God.
Johannes took his hands to his head and took them to his face to show his frustration. Tolani looked at Johannes with bewilderment.
Me? Yo? How can you even say this about me? I'm sure there is a mix-up somewhere about this diagnosis. But while it's being resolved, I will not allow you call me names. You just imply that I sleep around you. And as the woman you plan to marry, I deserve an apology.
She leaned forward on her chair and slapped the table, barely sparing Dr. Dyer a glance. Johannes laughed hard.
Hey, Apple what? Besides, who wants to marry you? Liar. You think my parents will want a daughter-in-law that is HIV positive? And who even lies about it? Tolani, I'm a reverend son, for crying out loud. This can't happen. We can't happen. I feel too betrayed right now by what you've done. I'm out.
Johannes raised his hands above his head to indicate that it was done. Dr. Dyer, who had been watching the duel, cleared his throat and said,
Okay, guys, we need to calm down here and have a talk about this. You see, guys, HIV is not the end of the world.
The middle-aged doctor shifted his gaze to Johan, who was already walking to the door angrily.
Doctor, there is nothing to discuss here. I'm out.
He took his tall frame towards the door and turned the knob sharply. The key snapped, gave way, and Johan walked out. He collided with a nurse who was coming into the doctor's office with 2 files of what appears to be medical documentations. He muttered a string of sorries and continued moving.
Sorry.
The nurse's eyes darted from the door to Dr. Dio behind the desk to the distraught Tolani opposite him. She drops the files and steps out, locking the door behind her. Tolani raised her hands to her head and exclaimed,
Doctor, it is finished. That's my husband to be walking away.
She emphasized her point by pointing to the door.
HIV? Where did that even come from?
She questioned as she ran her hands through her hair.
Miss Tolani, you have to calm down. Let's take this one at a time.
Tolani shook her head slowly.
Take it one at a time. Oh, okay, fine. Can we start with validating that the result is truly mine? Doctor, I'm telling you that I've never had sex. So how? How, doctor?
Tears flowed freely on her face. Her tears finally grew to become big gulps of grace. Dr. Dio offered her a wad of tissue and waited for her tears and hiccups to subside before speaking.
Tolani, I'm very sorry about this discovery. I know it's very hard on you and your fiancé. As much as I understand your concerns and disappointment, being HIV positive is actually not the end of the world, like I said before. What you need to do now is to go on the right treatment.
Tolani cuts in abruptly.
HIV isn't the end of the world. Look now. Right here. My fiancé walked out on me and called me names. Just like that. The news of what could even be a wrong diagnosis has changed my life.
This isn't a wrong diagnosis, to be honest. We follow international standard operating procedures and conduct routine quality assurance to ensure we don't issue false results, whether positive or negative. However, Ms. Tolani, you can have your test done in another facility or even run a rapid self-test at home. You can easily get the kit at the pharmacy adjacent to the hospital or the nearest or the biggest pharmacy close to your home. I understand that you are still in shock, but accepting your HIV status is the first step towards living positively with the virus. We have a team of trained professional counselors who are available to answer all your questions and support you in further management. Just know that you are not alone in this fight.
She shifted her chair backward and grabbed her grey leather bag.
This is a lot for me to process, doctor. I just need to be left alone for now.
She swung a bag on her shoulder and walked out of the hospital.
Tolani opened the door to her parents' house. Her father was watching the TV, as predicted, and her mother, from the aroma that wafted to her, must be in the kitchen. Tolani knelt quickly before her dad and said,
Daddy, good evening.
Good evening, Motolani. How are you doing today? Where is your young man? He didn't follow you? I thought you both were supposed to be together.
Tolani felt the tears rush back into her eyes.
Dad?
And she began to cry. Her father, now alarmed, asked,
Oh, Tolani, what is it?
She opened her mouth to tell him, but she saw his tired eyes. Her father was hypertensive, and she didn't want his health to deteriorate because of her.
Tolani, I'm waiting for your answer. The darkest bed. You just kept quiet.
He queried more loudly. Her mother must have heard his voice because she came out of the kitchen with a whiff of the jollof sauce at her wake and a kitchen napkin in her hands.
Tolani, you are back.
Yes, ma, I am.
Have you guys collected your test results? By the way, where is your hands? He didn't come with you?
Tolani looked down in a bid to avoid her mother's eyes.
No, mommy. Johans didn't come with me.
She turned towards the water dispenser to grab a cup. She could feel her mother's piercing gaze.
He hasn't quite gotten used to Lagos life, has he? What that boy did for you is a lot of sacrifice. So, I mean, he was born and got up in Plateau State, and he left all that for this Chakasulu life of Lagos.
Her mother said as she sat on the same chair with her father. Her dad smiled and chimed in.
The young man definitely has a good head on his shoulder.
Tolani looked from her dad to her mom and started crying.
Mom, Dad, I'm HIV positive.
She plotted before she realized it and sank into the nearest sofa to her. Tolani's mom took her hands to her chest in an expression of shock.
HIV? How?
God forbid.
His hands going over his head several times.
I think it's true, Dad and Mom. The HIV test that I did was positive, although I bought an HIV rapid test kit so I can do a retest.
Yeah.
She raised her hands to her head and started wailing.
I knew it. The devil doesn't want me to give out my daughter's anniversary. Yeah, I let her. So,
her husband gave her a look that told her to comport herself.
Will you go and do the test now? Abibawo.
Her mother said. Tolani nodded and headed to the room that she shared with her younger sister. She had been very excited this morning when she was leaving the room. She was supposed to be taking steps closer to her big day. The test kit had 2 pouches. She removed the pouch containing the test device. She ensured that she didn't touch the pad with her finger. She placed the flat pad on her gum, rubbed it in her upper gum once, then on her lower gum once, and then placed the pad inside the tube until it touched the bottom. She didn't need anyone to tell her that Mom and Dad were pacing downstairs. She waited patiently for the timer to stop reading and reflect the test result. She got out her phone to see if Johan had dropped a message while she waited, but nothing. She dialed his number, but he didn't speak. Tears stung her eyes again. How in heaven's name did she get HIV? She rummaged through her memory for the umpteenth time. Is it possible that she had been raped and she wasn't aware of it? Of course not. There was no way that could have happened. When she was in Tower, her apprentice in school, Tower had come to learn fashion design with her after she had gotten pregnant without knowing who exactly got her pregnant. Tower. Tolani's eyes popped open and her mouth opened wide.
Oh my goodness. Tower.
Flashes of the time that Tower would use her sewing machine to sew, and then she would accidentally prick her fingers with the needle flashed through Tolani's mind. Tolani hadn't minded using the same needle on the sewing machine because she liked to think that it was only a mere privilege to be the one training someone. Besides, she could have been Tower if she didn't have the privileges that she had. The timer of the test kit stopped, and Tolani held her breath for the results.
Please be negative. Please.
She looked at the test device. The 2 red lines were complete. She knew this meant she was positive from what she had been told by the pharmacist. Tolani groaned and broke down in heavy bouts of tears. She was living with HIV, and if her assumptions were right, she must have been living with HIV for 2 years and more now. She had trained Tower when she was a final year student at the Federal University of Technology, Akure. Tolani stepped out to meet her waiting parent. She saw that her sister had also joined them in the sitting room as well. Tolani knew her parent had briefed her because Bolanle was sitting too quietly. She could feel the questions in their eyes. She nodded and everyone rushed to her at once.
My dear, it is all right. You will be all right. We will be all right. You will be fine, Ashakade. I know HIV isn't the end of your world.
She heard the catch in her mom's voice and felt a tear drop on her shoulder.
Her father and sister also muttered some reassurance, although she could hear and feel the fear in their voices.
So Johannes left when he had the diagnosis?
Her father asked suddenly. Tolani nodded and looked at her hand.
It's alright, dear. It's a tough pill for anyone to swallow. He should have at least ensured that you get home safe, considering your state of mind. This man said he loves you, for crying out loud.
Daddy, don't blame Johannes. He assumed I lied to him about my celibacy. I was confused myself until a few minutes ago. I think I must have contacted it from Tower, my apprentice in school. She was the daughter of a woman that sells roasted fish to me. She had gotten pregnant for one of the indigents there and didn't even know the exact father of her child. I observed that she was always brooding at her mother's shop, so I asked her to come learn with me in my final year. She got to know she was HIV positive during delivery. I am afraid that we weren't careful with needles and razors. It just never occurred to me that I could get infected with anything through all that needle sharing. I just wanted to be kind to Tawa,
she said soberly. Her father exclaimed.
Tolani, you should have known better. But it has happened, it has happened. Stop beating yourself up and let us move forward. I think you need to go back to see your doctor. Your mother and I will gladly follow you if you need us to. We need to know the next thing to do.
Yes. Her mom added with as much of a first smile as she could muster. Bolanle, her younger sister, also nodded her head in affirmation. Tears pricked the back of her eyes again, but she wiped it to the back of her palm.
Mommy, I'm not going to die, am I?
Tolani knew her mom didn't have the answer, but she still wanted her reassurance. Her mother moved closer to her and wrapped her arm around Tolani on the brown sofa she was seated on.
No, you won't die. You will get the needed help. And you, my dear, will kick HIV in the back. It won't take you down.
Thank you, Mommy.
This entire news just made me forget about supper. Will you like some? You need to eat something. You look very tired.
She shakes her head profusely.
No, Mommy, I'm not hungry.
Everyone watched her as she made her way to her room. They all had the same unspoken question. What now?
Radio, produced by Equitable Health Access Initiative, written by Temitope Olaomi, narrated by Olaton Adeola. Theme song, Sammy J. Character illustration by Instinct Illustrations. Voice actors, Olgo Izuako Onyejepu as Tolani, Madwa Kolam Onyema as Johannes, Emmanuel Afolayan as Nonso, Timothy Akimorele as Dr. Dayo, Uju Umeozulu as Udwak, Ganiyu Agbola as Daddy Tolani, Mojisola Osadola as Mommy Tolani, Temitope Olawumi as Dr. Foluke, Korede Banjo as Daddy Nonso, Esther Oyekoya as Somto, Tominsin Majakodumi as Nurse 1, Rosemary Dada as Nurse 2, Emmanuel Afolayan as Horse Rider, Emmanuel Afolayan as Compared. Don't forget to subscribe and share.
The